Hey, what's going on, everyone? I am VJ Kailash, and I run a hedge fund specializing in option selling strategies. So I thought it'd be fun just to create videos on what options trading is, and so hopefully able to teach you guys something and just for you to use in your own portfolios. If you guys have any questions during any of this, just leave a comment below. I'd be more than happy to create a video or respond. Happy to help in any way I can. So let's get started. Just a really quick introduction. I went to NC State University, studied finance, graduated summa cum laude, and got a job in investment management. And then after 5 years, got my CFA chartered financial analyst. That's this thing behind me. And it's basically meant for portfolio management, investment management. So finance is something that's very near and dear to my heart, but it's also my professional background. And that's why I left my employer earlier this year and started up my own hedge fund. So it's something I'm really passionate about. And not just the technical finance stuff, I'm also really passionate about the personal finance stuff. So I plan to create more videos on the investing and personal finance, paying off the debt, all that stuff, just so to help benefit society, right? Awesome. Well, let's get started. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about options trading. If you're not familiar with options, it sounds extremely daunting, and it can be, right? It's a lot of people say options are really risky and dangerous, and I could not agree more. They are extremely risky and extremely dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. And that's kind of what I love about it, right? It's like, think of driving a car, right? If you've never seen a car before and it's your first time getting in, that would be terrifying. I mean, that's extremely risky, right? You can go 0 to 60 in I don't know how many seconds, but now you're literally driving a weapon if you don't know what you're doing. But if you do know what you're doing, you can get from point A to point B a lot quicker and a lot more efficiently. And that's how I think of options, right? Once you understand how it works, you can improve your financial returns and lower risk if you know what you're doing. So let's get started. What are options? Options are basically just a financial contract. That's all it is, right? So what is usually on a contract? Usually it's between one party and another, and this contract basically gives someone the right but not the obligation to do something. So we're going to get into two types of options. One of them is the call option, and the other one is known as the put option. All right, so let's jump into it. Okay, so this is my first time really drawing with a mouse, so you gotta hang with me. I haven't done this much, so it needs a little bit of practice. I mean, not saying my actual handwriting's any better, but yeah, hang with me. So we got the call option here. All right, so the call option, remember, this is a contract between two people. And actually, let's back up a little bit. Let's talk about markets in general, right? Let's say you go to the grocery store. Because you are the buyer and the grocery store is the seller, you're exchanging goods, and so there's an actual market. Let's say you go somewhere to buy something, but there's no sellers, there's no market because there's no supply, right? So a market needs to have both a buyer and a seller. And so that's very important to know. You need to have both a buyer and a seller. So similarly with these options, there's always a buyer and there's always a seller. So we're going to look at options from the buyer's perspective. That way it's a little bit easier to understand from the seller's perspective because it can get a little bit confusing. Okay, all right, well, let's get into it. So the call option. There are three major parts for the call option. All right, so the call option gives the buyer of the option the right, but not the obligation to buy 100 shares at a certain price on or before the expiration date. Gosh, I just definitely butchered that one, but it says expiration, so just go with it. So the call option gives the buyer the right, but not the obligation to buy 100 shares of a certain stock on or before the expiration date. All right, so that's the call option. Remember, there's two types of options. Now we're going to look at the second option. This is known as the put, P-U-T. All right, and the put option gives the buyer of the option the right, but not the obligation, to sell 100 shares. And it's at a certain price on or before the expiration date. So they're actually the exact same definition between a call and put option, except for this one word, buy and sell. That's the only difference between a call and put. So a good way to remember this, let's say you have a phone, all right? You pick up the phone to call your friend, and then after the phone call, you put down the phone. So you call up, you put down. call up, put down. So what does this mean? All it means is if you think the stock is going to go up from the buyer's perspective, you would call up your friend, as in you would buy a call option. Now, if you think the stock's going to go down, you would put down the phone, as in you buy a put. And the reason is, again, this is very important to know. Just because you think a stock's going to go up, it doesn't mean you should buy a call option. And just because you think the stock's going to go down, it does not mean you should buy a put option. This is purely just to help you keep the definition straight. This is not actual advice. And seriously, like, pay attention to this part. It's very important. Remember, the call option gives you the right to buy 100 shares at a certain price. So if you think the stock's going to go up in price, you're going to buy a call option, right? Call up. You have the right to buy it at a certain price. Now, if you think the stock's going to go down, you put down the phone because you have the right to sell the stock. All right, well, now let's look at an example. All right, let's say a stock right now is at $100, but you think in about, a month and a half, you think it's probably going to be trading at $110, but you're not 100% sure. And so you don't want to go buy all the stock at once because it may not go and you just end up, holding on to these stocks. So something you can do is buy something called a call option. All right, so right now the stock's trading at $100. You think it's going to go to 110. So you could buy a call option with a strike price of 105. So if you remember this definition, right, the call option gives you the right to buy 100 shares at a certain price, and that's what the certain price is. That's what this 105 is. This is the certain price on or before the expiration date. All right, so for taking on this right, you need to pay something called a premium to the option seller. Remember, there's a market, there's a buyer and seller always. And so if you're buying the call option, that means someone sold you the call option. So because you're buying this call option, let's say the premium is $2 per share. And so you're paying $2 to give you the right to buy the stock at 105. And so now multiple things can happen, right? If at expiration, that's, let's say, in 45 days, the stock is below 105, that means you would have just lost your premium. Let me use a different color here. That means you would have just lost your premium. However, if the stock is above 105, that means you had the right to buy it at 105, and now you could sell it in the open market for 110. That's incredible, right? That means you bought it at 105 and you could sell it in the open market for 110. So you would have profited $5 minus the $2 premium you already paid for it. So you would have made about $3 on that trade. So again, there's two different things that could happen. If you buy a call option, and let's say the stock right now is at 100, you buy a call option with the $105 strike price, you pay a $2 premium, and if the stock stays below 105 by the expiration date, you would have just lost that premium. But if the stock goes above 105, you have the right to buy it at 105 from the person who sold you that option contract. And you can do whatever you want with that stock. You can keep it if you want, or you can sell it in the open market, or you could just sell that contract to someone else who's looking to exercise their option to get the shares. So there are many different ways to go with this. All right, well, let's clean this up really quick. Now let's look at a put option. Remember, the put option gives you the right to sell 100 shares at a certain price on or before the expiration date. All right, so here's our handy dandy stock price chart. Let's say the stock right now is trading at $100 and the strike price, we're gonna make it 95. All right, gosh, that's a terrible looking 5, but it's 95, just trust me there. It's So what does the put option let you do? It gives you the right, but not the obligation to sell a stock at a certain price, right? So you have the right to sell the stock at $95. So remember, right now, let me change colors. Right now, the stock is trading at 100. Now, if you bought a put option, it gives you the right to sell it at 95. And I'm just using these numbers completely arbitrarily. In future videos, we'll look at actual real world examples. But this, I'm just saying, you could choose any type of strike price you want. You could choose any expiration you want, it ranging from today all the way till a few years. And so there is a lot of flexibility in this. I'm just using this just purely arbitrarily for easy numbers' sake. So the buyer of the put option would have paid, let's say, $2 premium for this right to sell 100 shares at $95. All right, so let's say fast forward 45 days, because that's how long this contract is in this example. Let's say the stock's trading at $90 in 45 days, right? For whatever reason. So that means the person who owns a put option, the person who bought the put option, they can sell the stock right at 95, even though it's trading at 90. So in reality, they would have made $5 minus the $2 premium they paid. But now let's say the stock actually stays above $95. So what happens? Right? So let's say the stock is trading above $95 at expiration. That means they would have just lost a $2 premium, and then the person who sold the put option would have basically made money. So this is just a very high level kind of concept. So let's recap really quick. There's two types of options, right? There's a call option and there's a put option. The call option, remember, call up, you have a phone, call up, put down. So the call option gives the buyer of the option the right, but not the obligation, to buy 100 shares of a stock at a certain price on or before the expiration date. Now the put option, remember, call up, put down. The put option gives the buyer of the option the right, but not the obligation, to sell 100 shares of a certain stock on or before the expiration date. So remember, they're the exact same definitions except on that one word. The call option gives you the right to buy. The put option gives you the right to sell. Okay, let's take a look right here. Okay, so we're going to redraw call here. We're going to put right here. All right. So what we just talked about was from the buyer's perspective. Okay, remember, for every market, there needs to be both a buyer and a seller. So this is very important. So the buyer, remember, if you think a stock's going to go up, you would buy a call option. And this isn't actual advice. This is just, again, to keep things straight in your mind. Now, if you think the stock's going to go down, you would buy a put option. Well, I'm gonna again try to use colors here. So let's do that. And then green for call. Awesome. Just, hang with me while I try to figure this out. This is my first video, so great. Now, so we got that as the buyer. Now let's look at the seller. So if the buyer of the call option makes money if the stock goes up, when does the seller make money? Well, because they're taking the other side of the trade, basically the seller makes money if the stock goes down in price, or if it actually just stays kind of flat. Just pretend this is a flat symbol. Because remember, in our example, we had the stock at $100, 105 strike price, right? So anything below here, this is all profit for the seller, because the buyer only makes money if the stock goes above 105 and on top of the premium that they paid. So anything below 105, the seller makes money. But if it goes above 105, the seller loses money. So the person who bought a call option, they're hoping that the stock's going to increase in price. The person who sold the call option, they're hoping the stock is going to go down in price. But they get to collect a premium to do so. Great. Now let's look at the put option seller side, right? So the put option buyer, they make money if the stock's going to go down in value, right? They want the stock to go down. So the put option seller, how do they make money? They make money if the stock goes up or if it stays flat, right? If you remember this chart again, we have $100 strike, or we have $100 stock, and the strike price, let's say it's 95. If the stock stays above $95, the seller makes money. Now, if the stock goes below $95, then the buyer makes money. Okay, so looking at this, which one would you rather be? A buyer or a seller of an option? And the thing is, when most people start trading options, including me, it's just easier to be a buyer, right? You pay a premium, let's say it's a $2 premium, and then if the market goes in the way you want it to, great, you make money. If not, you lose it. And so it just turns into a gamble, and it's important to recognize that. In future videos, I'll talk about exactly what you should be doing, or a better way to be more profitable in your trading. Now let's talk about something known as option assignment. Basically, the person who bought the call option, remember, they have the right but not the obligation to buy their stock at, let's say, $105. Now, if I sold them the call option at 105, I'm now obligated to sell them 100 shares at 105. So the stock could be trading at 140, but I still have to sell it to them at 105. Right. So where I get the shares, so maybe I have to go into the open market, buy it at a certain price, and then give it to them. I have to do that. Or if I actually own the shares, I could just sell them the shares, which I have. And we'll talk about that strategy in a little bit. Now let's look at the put side for assignment. The put option buyer, remember, they own the contract. The buyer has a right to sell 100 shares. That's what their right is. They have to buy this contract, but this contract gives them the right to sell their stock. And so if they have the right to sell their stock at $95, and if I sold them the put option at 95, that means I'm obligated to buy this stock from them at $95. And so the stock could be trading at $70, but now I'm obligated to buy it from them at 95 because I accepted the $2 premium that they paid. But if the stock was trading above $95, they wouldn't exercise their right to sell their stock, right? Why would they sell it to me at 95 if the stock was trading in the open market for $97? It doesn't make any sense. So that option contract would expire worthless, and the option seller, me, would keep that premium. But if the stock dropped down to $70, I become obligated to buy it at 95. But again, I collected that premium to do so. So I think that's all I have for an introduction to options. This is just, I threw a lot of information at you guys. Leave questions below, and future videos plan to talk about actual strategies we can take and all that. But seriously, leave comments below. I want to hear what you guys want to learn and be more than happy to teach you. Thank you so much for tuning in, and hope you guys have a great day.